All right.
Okay.
Chief Martinez.
Okay, you ready? Okay, everything's recording and way to go. Okay. We'll go ahead and call the City of Plymouth. Go ahead and call the City of Plymouth's council meeting, regular meeting agenda for Thursday, December 9th, 2021 to order. Council meeting is in person or via teleconference or Zoom. Pursuant to Assembly Bill AB 361, the meeting will be held in person or by teleconference or electronically. In-person participation by the public is permitted, and remote electronic public participation is also available in the following ways. Through Zoom at the City of Plymouth City Council Zoom meeting, and list the time. And we also have the, web address listed for that. And the phone number is 1-669-900-9128. And the meeting code ID is 898-2527-8213 with passcode 652583. And then it lists the mobile tab. Members of the public participating electronically via this link and wishing to speak may do so during public comment by using the raise hand feature in the Zoom webinar. When dialing in to Zoom at the phone number listed above on the phone, use 9 to raise or lower your hand, and use 6 to mute and unmute your phone. You can submit a written public comment prior to the meeting by emailing your comments to the Deputy City Clerk. Her email is listed. 4 or 5 p.m. on the day of the meeting, email public comments will be distributed to the City Council and made part of official minutes. On the day of the council meeting, you can fill out a comment card available in the chambers and provide it directly to the Deputy City Clerk prior to the start of the City Council meeting. Roll call.
Councilmember Stem.
Present.
Councilmember Kleinfelter.
Here.
Councilmember Ackerman. Here. Vice Mayor Amoruso.
Present.
Mayor White.
Here.
Thank you.
And if we can all stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have an invitation tonight. So can I have approval of the City Council regular meeting agenda for December 9th, 2021?
I would like to ask Frank a couple of questions regarding agenda item 7.2. It's very happy, pleased to see that we're showing amounts on the agenda, but we're being asked, if you go in the packet, to approve a project that isn't listed. Nothing about the project is listed on the agenda. So the public would have no way of knowing what is being proposed.
Yeah, I think the balance of the grant program for the local match and staff report supplements that information, because the Prop 68 per capita grant program is 4 parks. So it puts if a member is interested in the public, they have the opportunity to inquire and look into it. So I hear what you're saying, but I think this is sufficient.
Most people are not going to have a packet and a staff report. That is why it is so terribly important to have clear and precise agendas so the public knows what we're doing on their behalf. And this does not mention a project, but what it does mention is that we're authorizing every action after we take tonight's action. So the public has today to comment on something and they didn't know about it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think if once the item is addressed, it'll explain what that authority is actually doing and not doing. I hope that will clarify it. But it's really tied to the grant administrative portions of the grant, not precluding this from coming back to council for approval for the plans and any plans and specifications, and also approval of any contracts for any contractors. That's not the intent. That language is taken from the resolution. And I think we'll explain that when that item comes up to the council. The language of the resolution is required by the state, and it specifically says it can't be changed. So that's the intent of it.
I understand that most funding agencies have required language in a resolution these days, but I think the agenda should have been supplemented to include what was being proposed. So I want that on the record, please.
My question, Frank, is as to why this wasn't brought to the council a month ago. Why?
Yeah, I guess.
Why here in the middle of December and it's due to the state December 31st?
Yeah, so I think right now, just to clarify the scope of this item right now, it's to see whether or not we want to approve the agenda as posted.
Right.
So I think that question and the other questions that at least relate to the grant piece that Councilmember Kleinfelder raised are good, fair questions for the substance of the discussion. Right now, it's just a question of whether you're going to approve the agenda as posted.
And just for the record, I want to add too that as far as approving the agenda, I also noticed that in 7.2, as Councilmember Kleinfelder mentioned, I would have preferred to see additional language, just a little bit, that specifies the project in the agenda item itself. I realize a reader or anybody who's interested could get additional information, but I would like to have seen it in the actual agenda item.
I make a motion to approve for approval of city council regular meeting agenda as of December 9th, 2021.
I'll make the motion.
Second the motion, is that what you mean?
Roll call vote. Councilmember Sims,
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelter,
No.
Councilmember Ackerman,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Amoruso,
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. It's 4 yes and 1 no.
Okay, public comment. Under Government Code Section 54954.3, citizens wishing to address the council for any matter not on the agenda may do so at this time by completing and submitting a speaker submittal form to the city clerk or following the COVID-19 advisory instructions noted on the first page of this agenda. For remote participation for items on the agenda, speakers will be called by the mayor at that point on the agenda when the items will be heard. Speakers are encouraged to keep comments to 3 minutes or less and to state name and community of residence, but doing so is not required. Under provisions of government code, the city council is prohibited from materially discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda unless it can be demonstrated to be an emergency nature or an urgent need to be taken for immediate action arose after the posting of the agenda. Okay, we'll start off here. Is there anyone here at City Hall that would like to speak during public comment? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom, use the raised hand feature, that would like to speak on during public comment at this time?
Yes, Aaron Watkins.
Good evening, Aaron.
Good evening. Aaron Watkins, Battalion Chief with Amador Fire Protection District. Just giving you a brief call update for the month, covering the month of November. During the month of November, within the city limits of Plymouth, the Amador Fire responded to 20 calls. 14 of those were medical aids, 1 vehicle accident with no injuries, 1 vehicle accident with injuries, and 4 lift assists. In the greater Battalion 20 area, so including Fiddletown, River Pines, Willow Springs, all that area that our engine out of Plymouth will respond to as well. We had 29 calls for service during the month of November. And that's all I have.
The 29 are in addition to the 20 in Plymouth?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So in the whole Battalion 20 area in the month of November, there was 49 calls, including the 20 in Plymouth.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else on Zoom? Use the raised hand feature if you'd like to speak during public comment. Okay, is there any emails, texts?
No, thank you.
Okay, we'll go back around. Is there anyone here at City Hall that would like to speak during? Mr. Spinetta?
Yes, sir. This might be appropriate for the person on the phone. Do you guys, since you have the most authority in town, do you know when Santa Claus will be driving through town for the canned food drive? Is that happening this year? Does he know on the phone?
Is Aaron still there?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that. I can definitely look and see when that would occur.
Okay, we have a lot of kids who want to know, and some adults too.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak during public comment?
Yes, I would.
Nope.
So yesterday I ran into a gal at the grocery store and she was giving the clerk some cards. And I told her, I said, well, I'm on council. And she's like, well, then here's a bunch of cards. So I brought them and put them down on council's things. And on December 11th, 2021, from 1 to 4, Help for All Holidays is a free shop for families in need for Christmas. And it'll be held over at the trailer park, the Far Horizons. And there'll be gifts and all kinds of stuff. So just want to get that word out there, put it on the record, and maybe the city can put this up on their website and on their Facebook page to help promote it.
And that's on Saturday?
Yeah, December 11th. That would be Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving, is there anyone else here at City Hall that would like to speak during public comment? Moving back to Zoom, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak during public comment? Use the raise hand feature. Okay, and one more time, is there any more emails, text?
No.
Okay, we will close public comment. Presentations and proclamations and appointments. There are none. The consent calendar.
I would move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second that.
Merry Christmas.
Roll call
Get
vote.
me every so often.
Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Councilmember Ackerman. Aye. Vice Mayor Amoruso.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion 5.
Public hearings, there is none. Regular agenda items, 7.1, resolution 2021-16, accepting the SR 49 emergency water line repair project as complete and authorizing staff to file the necessary closeout documents.
All right, for this item, as we know, a contractor hit our water line on 49. So we had some emergency repairs that had to take place. The work's not completed. We came in slightly under the contract amount, so that's good news. A related update is that we have filed with the insurance for the contractor that hit the water line for reimbursement. We talked to Caltrans, and apparently that is the route we were supposed to go. So that has been completed and filed. Whenever we have an update on that, we will let you know. But other than that, the project's done, looks good.
Okay, we're gonna go to public comment first. Is there anyone here at City Hall that would like to speak on this matter? Is there anyone on Zoom? Use the raised hand feature if you'd like to speak on this matter during public comment.
No hands are raised at this time.
And Maria, is there any texts, emails?
No.
Okay, back here at City Hall, is there anyone here that would like to speak on this? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak on this? Use the raised hand feature.
The one on Zoom that I can see.
Okay, and text and email?
No.
Okay, we'll close public comment for that, and, okay, questions, comments, concerns, Councilmember Sim?
No, nothing. I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Councilmember Kleinfelter?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Ackerman?
No questions, comments?
Councilmember Amherst, you're good? Okay. Do we need a motion to?
The resolution.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion that we accept the project as complete and authorize staff to file necessary documents to close out the project.
Yeah, and include the resolution number, Marion.
Thank you, and include the resolution 2021-16. Thank you.
I'll second.
I saw all microphones.
Everybody.
Roll call vote. Councilor Sim.
Aye.
Councilor Kleinfelter.
Aye.
Councilor Ackerman. Aye. Vice Mayor Melissa.
Aye.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Aye.
Okay, here's the big one. 7.2, resolution 2021-17, authorizing application to the state proposition 68 per capita grant program in the amount of 177,952, which requires an additional local match of 44488, and authorizing the city manager to conduct negotiations, execute and submit all documents necessary for the completion of the grant. So before we even get into this, I just need one question to answer. What is pickleball?
Exactly.
It's like tennis,
Perfect.
but
Miniature
quite.
tennis.
miniature tennis, yes.
Okay,
basically.
that's,
I love that point.
I wanted that answered first, so.
All right, bear with me here, because there's gonna be a lot of information coming at you. I'm hopefully gonna answer a good chunk of questions that I know are gonna come up. But again, I will also try to answer any after that. So the quick story of this grant is the Proposition 68 per capita grant. It's for parks. The fact that it's a per capita grant meant that we don't have to compete to get it. We just have to put in a sufficient application for a relevant project that meets the requirements. So this is money that we don't necessarily have to fight for. We just have to ask for it in the right way. We've known about this for more than a year at this point. However, the initial projects that we were looking at completing did not meet the requirements. Last year, we were actually looking at a hiking trail on the Arroyo Ditch. So we pulled that back. Additionally, something else that changed with this grant is we were informed, because we've been talking to the state, that the match requirement was significantly higher than this 20% you see before you. We were told that it was 50% or more. About 3 months ago, someone said, "Why have you guys not sent in your thing for this?" We said, "It's going to cost us a lot of money to do it, money that we most likely don't have." And they said, "Your match is 20%. We said, "Why didn't we hear that earlier?" At that point, we started working and seeing if there's any other applicable projects that could get done in the city that we could apply for. The basic requirement pretty much is for new parks or park improvements. You can see the dollar amount, $177,000 with our match. So just over $200,000 is not going to go incredibly far by itself. So that's probably the reason we didn't look at let's buy land, build a new park. Looking at existing parks that we had, it would have to be for park improvements, not for maintenance. So we very much quickly crossed off a couple others, landed on what looks like Lodge Hill. We have Veterans Park, which Rotary is kind of taking the lead on improvements there and coming back to council for it. So they're left with one area where we felt like we probably could have an opportunity. As we started looking at Lodge Hill, we actually found historic documents that's, you see 1986, they tried to do something. They had a tennis court in that list, but they were unable to get a grant for it. And like I said, we're looking at a limited number of uses. We landed on Lodge Hill. So the city manager went ahead and engaged Aaron Reddick, who's a landscape architect, to see if we could get something that would meet the requirements for the application. And note at this point, this is an application only. So from some existing funds in our budget, the city manager said, let's hire this landscape architect who's familiar with Plymouth. He's been doing a lot of work in the area. Let's see what kind of things he could possibly recommend that we could take to the state and say, here's some projects. What do you think about these? Let's move forward. You'll look at that list, and I'm not an expert at the cost of things, but I can tell you that those things cost more than $200,000. And I'm sure you can look at that list and guess at that too. What the idea of this is essentially to get just enough ideas to get an application approved. And from that point, we're going to have to do a significant amount of work to actually determine what's going to go in there. We essentially have a draft of several things that could. The idea with pickleball is that a lot of them have been starting to go into parks. A lot of tennis courts are being converted pretty much all over the state, but that's not something that has to stay. Actually, none of these things have to stay. Essentially what the application is can we use $200,000 to do something at Lodge Hill? Our understanding from our conversations with the state is if we submit something adequate at that point for that location, we can pretty much change whatever we want to do after that. So a timeline that we were looking at as city staff is that considering this not as a approval to go ahead with the project, but considering this as approval that we want to get some funds to do something at Lodge Hill specifically. And this early spring, probably, I'd say probably January, February, leave enough time for noticing. We would need to bring this back to a council meeting. And I think before that, we would like to have a community meeting for people that might be affected by it, see exactly what they would like. I think we already have a backup drawing from landscape architect, some things that can go places. Because part of it is going to be dependent on the topography, what we can do. And we're going to need some more clarity on costs. So council, what we're recommending is that you decide to take $40,000 of the city money and get $180,000 of state money to do something at Lodge Hill. The reason there's specifics in there is that's what we have to have for the application. Other than that, I think the city council can also set some timelines that they would like to see on certain things, as well as essentially from this point, anyone we want to work with, any projects, that's all going to have to come back to you guys. And that's pretty much it. It's amount. I think that crossed off most of the questions that I saw.
Okay, I know that you're gonna get a ton of questions asked tonight. I'm gonna try to get through the public first. I'm sure we're gonna have enough questions. So let's go here and open up public comment. We'll start here at City Hall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, your button's not working, John.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, you all know me, but I'm also co-chair of the Veterans Park with Jim Wise. We were kind of blindsided by this surprise to see that this was even on the agenda. We didn't find out about it until yesterday. And after getting it and being able to read through the staff report, we found out it's a duplicate of almost everything we're doing at the Veterans Park. One of the things that they mentioned here is of course, walking trails, and we are, it's one of the plans that's in our plan for a walking trail, included with a senior, for seniors, that's ADA and has senior exercise equipment. And that was one of the things that's duplicate of what we're doing. The shade structures and those other functioning things are duplicate of what we're doing. The only difference basically between the two is this mentions a pickleball court. It's going to be on a side hill there by the lodge. It's going to create a movement and a lot of dirt to be able to make a pickleball court there. And we have the flat spot and the ability to put pickleball court, tennis courts in, which Veterans Park. But the so it's a duplicate of facilities. But what's surprising to us, the two of us, is that we were unaware of it. There was any discussions on this, and we are going to be having to come back to the city to see how we're going to fund ongoing maintenance of the park and any other items that we're still working on. So we were really surprised because we might be competing for some of the same funding and not knowing what the city was doing on this. So what I'm worried about is the transparency in the planning. Because we have not only this part, we have parts of Zinfandels, we have the regional part that Zinfandels is required to build. And do we want to put a different pickleball court, tennis courts, right down, or whatever? Because we need to sit down and have a good discussion on what we're headed with parks. We don't want 2 or 3 parks that cut the attendance and the use, but increase the maintenance problems with. So my recommendation earlier was to go out to one of these recreation districts in Sacramento or somewhere and find out what is getting used, what they can expect as far as the needs, and get some background from people that are experienced at this. But we need to address this. One of the things that I've always wanted to do was try to pick some kind of a park up on our street. The kids up there, they have no place to play except in the street. And that's we need to take a general look at, but it needs to be open to the public. We need to know it's surprising to us that we're sitting on a recreation committee and had no idea that this was even in the works. I did hear some time back a director talking about the grant, potential grant for the walking trail in Laura Gage. That was the project that I put forth. I had not heard that it had been scrapped. But subsequently, there's other things that I thought the city was working on for us. One of them was to to get another 20 feet of property from what was used to be our land parcel, adjacent to our parcel, for a dog park. And I just found out today that that parcel just sold without to someone else. I talked to the new owner and they said, well, we're not willing to sell you any property to expand your park.
Okay.
So that was something I think that ongoing and we thought was so in order. So anyway, if that's our concern, we'd like to be able to sit down and talk to the city and figure out where we're headed with parks. And we need to be transparent and have a common a goal for everybody to support the work.
Okay.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, I appreciate your comments, and I think the council would like to be part of the conversation too.
I agree with that. I had no idea that there was part, folks knew nothing about this potential grant. I think some of the people on council here didn't know about it until a couple of days ago as well. So I think that I was told, however, that Veterans Park was not, could not be, because of the way they're classified, this money was not suitable to their operation. Frank, can you speak to that? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't.
Okay, well.
We're still in the public.
That may not be true.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'm totally, I agree with what John said, that I think this thing should be looked at a little further rather than jump into this thing. I had a problem with Lodge Hill as well. I think it's potentially money.
Well, we can, yeah, we'll get into,
Yeah.
we'll get into that here in a minute. Mr. Spinetta.
Yes, and I do understand if this does get submitted, we can change anything afterwards. So this is a comment from my daughter Amber, who does play tennis and pickleball. She would rather have a tennis court. You can convert a tennis court to pickleball courts, but you can't do vice versa. So tennis. Also, because there is no dog park, going to Veterans Park, that is a good idea to have here. And I mean, I think it's a great idea to have a dog park. So both of those things for sure. I think that there needs to be a little bit nicer talk from public officials online about this. That's a whole other subject. But I think that we can benefit from some things, but I think for sure what John is talking about is pretty darn important, especially if there's elements that are going to be missing from that park. You know, but anyway, do keep us informed more on this. And if you could, you know, post the ideas, send them out in the city water bill, things like that, links to it online. That'd be really cool for everybody. And if you could have a constant reminder in the water bill that people can get the packet and the agenda through email. I don't think people remember that often because it's not something we need to think about. But it would be cool if that was just a normal sentence in the Plymouth newsletter, because it's pretty cool to read this stuff ahead of time. So anyway, a couple of things like that. Other than that, I hope something does get built out. I'm glad that it is being built. The public gardens, that's worked out well so far, and school uses the lodge. Is there anything about the other half of the lodge being open? Isn't there still part of it that's not open? Or what's going on with that?
I don't know what the timeline on that getting completed. I know there's some work that still needs to be done. We did actually ask if this money could be used for that, but because the issue with that is essentially deferred maintenance that this needs months cannot be. But that's so it's a separate topic.
That makes sense. Okay.
Okay, anyone else here from the public?
Thank you. My name is Jim Wisen.
I kind of feel a little responsibility to at least make an observation or comment. I get a chance to serve as the chair of the Veterans Park Committee. And I appreciate the observations that John made a little earlier. First of all, I think you got to give a great shout out to the city staff. I mean, to leverage $44,000 to secure 177, that's a darn good deal. So kudos for the city for leveraging these funds to try to get some money for parks for our community. It would have been helpful to us, to be very candid, to know what was being envisioned for that park as we are in the process of going through a design phase for Veterans Park. We would like to be complementary and consistent with whatever may happen there, with whatever we could do there for the totality of the benefit of the community. But if we're going to make an investment, for example, in seniors there, that somewhat duplicates a little bit of the priority that we had for Veterans Park for wanting to raise private sector and some public sector funds as well to do something for seniors over here. It would be my observation that, and maybe we didn't have the time to do this, but to do some outreach into the community to make some type of a priority list to see what those items of the local community may really be that would rise to the top of the list. Is there something for like our youth community, for example, with a skateboard park that would be in one location and allow us to then dedicate the private sector funds that we're raising for Veterans Park for our senior community? I don't know, but the fact is we're not communicating to each other. We're not trying to do a comprehensive approach for the totality of what is the best for the entire community and all age groups and all members of our community. John makes another really good point. We've got a number of other parks that are going to come online in the next year or so. And to the extent that we have a comprehensive plan that understands what we would like to do in each park to address the needs and the priorities of each element of our community, I would think would be a smart thing for us as a community to have as an open discussion in an open forum. But I don't want to be dissuaded there. I'm really grateful for the fact that the city has been able to secure 177 grand. It helps our community, it's great. I just want to offer a recommendation that we do this a little bit more comprehensively and together so we can figure out how the totality of all that we're trying to do for all of our citizens is the priority that we move forward. And I thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for the chance to say this.
Is there anyone else here?
Just briefly, I think a very important issue has been brought up, and I do want to make sure that it's clarified. This was staff and partly the landscape architect throwing some things at the wall based on some community priorities that we knew beforehand. There was absolutely in this, there is definitely duplication with Veterans Park. And I think that's why we said there's some confusion. This is not authorizing the city manager to go build any of this. As staff, so Aaron and I talked with Rex. What we want to do here is, I think the interesting party that I thought about specifically was Veterans Park Committee. You know, we talked about when we need to get community input. I think moving forward more comprehensively on all of it is what needs to happen. And I think part of that will be at the council level, and part of that will be at the community level. Again, what we're the council, I believe, can also make another motion and instructions to staff of how they want to move forward on part of this. What staff's goal here is that we get approved to ask the state for $177,000 for Lunch Hill. That's as staff, that's the only thing that we're asking for here. We know that before actually anything gets built, I mean, for instance, one pickleball court, I will say it didn't make sense to me either. I prefer one tennis court. That's two pickleball courts. They're starting to become common all the time. what John said about talking to other parks and rec districts. I'll let you know that I did talk to a couple. I've seen a lot of tennis courts are starting to do the add pickleball marking so they can just wheel in these things. But yeah, just clarification. I don't think this was staff trying to leave anyone out. This is staff trying to get us in line for some money. That unfortunately we didn't realize until too late that was actually much more doable than we thought. There's a lot of, actually in Amador County, there's other jurisdictions that are in the same boat. We started working on it a couple of months ago. We found out at the same time as a couple of the other cities. So what we actually recently did was, apparently other cities hadn't submitted theirs yet. So we contacted every city in the county and said, are you submitting this? If not, can we ask to have your funds? Unfortunately, they are all also planning to submit applications. So we gave it a shot.
Okay, is there anyone else here at City Hall that would like to speak during public comment? John, you already spoke.
I just wanted to mention the fact that we are, a big thing with our park is the restrooms. And we're working with, trying to conjunction with our local park, provide restrooms. But there appears no restrooms involved with this. Because you can't open one hill. Restrooms. So, and the restrooms are a real problem at the grammar school. So that's one of the big positives.
Gonna turn that off if you're done, John.
Okay, moving on to Zoom with the raised hand feature. If no one else here. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak? Use the raised hand feature.
Mr. Mayor?
Hi, Rex.
Hello, sir. I don't have a raised hands feature. I'm looking for it, but I wanted to take a minute to first of all, thank Michael for doing a great job and trying to explain it. And a couple notes that I thought I was waiting to see if you brought them up, and I thought maybe I should bring them forward. This project is a 30,000 foot look down at Lodge Hill. And I took information like from Councilmember Kleinfelder as an example. She brought to us a year ago, or more than a year ago, some great information about senior exercise equipment. Where could we put it? And so if you look at the diagram that's in the packet, it talks about what we wish we could have. It's in there. We don't have another park where that probably would fit appropriately unless it would be Veterans Park, which now with all the great things they want to do would really make it very compacted. I also know that, for instance, the school district would have the ability, because part of that is making it walkable at Lodge Hill. The school district is actually using and doing pickleball, so you know, as are a lot of schools, and it's something kids can do when they're at school or when they're not at school. Because I heard a lot of comments that people are saying there's not enough for kids to do after school. There are an increased number of young adults that are doing pickleball, and older folks like me and others. Mr. Spinetta's daughter is correct. Tennis courts are becoming pickleball courts because it's easy to convert. I just hope people realize, especially at the council level, that this right here is an opportunity for us to obtain funds and use them at an underutilized location that needs these kind of improvements. If we don't do something on Lodge Hill, and maybe we find a way to rethink this before the grant is due, that's fine. But since 1986, there's been very little movement other than in the community part of the hall. If you look at the diagram that was there, a lot of the stuff is not a capital improvement like building buildings. It's putting in a venue for more wedding type things that could take place there, or ceremonies, improvements to get up to the community gardens. Look at it from a real high elevation, and also look at it that the fact that the Veterans Park folks, and I apologize to their committee if they didn't know about this in a very clear way. I'll take responsibility for that. But look at, we will sit down and say, oh, you're doing that and you have funds for it, then we will find something equally as good for over here. Can't use the excuse we have it someplace, because we have playground equipment on Main Street. We are going to have playground equipment out at Zinfandel Ridge for kids. You can't have enough of these kinds of things. So as you look at this, I just ask again that you look at from a very high altitude down onto this specific piece of property that we own, we don't do much with, and we need to make some improvements in that neighborhood. And what a great opportunity to use somebody else's funds to do it. Veterans Park, they're doing a great job, and they have funding sources that dwarf what this is. And we are supportive of that. My understanding when it talks about getting together with the city council, they're very close to coming in and making a presentation to the council for direction, guidance, and advice as to what they want to do. So don't think you're being left out. It's just that you are not attending the weekly or monthly meetings as we have staff members that have been lately. So it's all good things. We just try to get it into one area. I also know someone may say, well, why are you waiting till the last minute? I brought this back over a year ago by a staff report to the council for a different project, and we pulled it because we couldn't do it. So we've been working on this a while. And so I'm glad that we have something going on. There was another comment regarding the architect, the landscape architect. I can tell you that guy has done more work in Plymouth and spends more time in Plymouth than he does where he lives. And he was actually recommended by Plymouth residents for us to do this. And he gave us a really, really excellent deal on the project to get you in front of you what you have to help you make decisions. So just want to share that with you. And again, I want to thank staff and those who got a hold of me today. A number of citizens and council members called me about this. And I want to make sure that we really all are going the same direction for an improvement within our community. Thank you.
Okay, I see another hand raised on the.
Hello, my name is Samantha, and I heard about this just a few hours ago. And I wanted to obviously give my support for expanding the park and not doing duplication of work that doesn't necessarily seem like a wise use of money. I just wanted to call out that although I don't have children, I feel like it would be beneficial to have an area within this improvement for like a skateboard park or BMX park or rollerblade park, so that the kids who are of that, younger age, 10 and into the teens, have an area to go to spend time in a more conductive fashion and form versus, doing some other type of activities. So I just wanted to support that. I'm for, spending 40 to get 140. That makes worlds of sense, but I would just like if there's the opportunity, if we look at other solutions or have it one pickleball court or expand it and be able to add maybe other recreation activities for kids that are a little bit older and into other things other than tennis or pickleball, so that they could spend their time there in enjoying their life in this beautiful town that we live in. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with a raised hand feature?
I don't see any other raised hands.
Okay, is there any text, emails?
No.
Okay, back here to City Hall. Would anyone like to speak during public comment on this matter? Okay. Back to Zoom, by using the raise hand feature, if there's anyone that would like to speak on this matter, raise your hand on this or use the raise hand feature. Okay, and still no text or email?
No.
Okay, moving on to the councils. Sorry for stopping you, Councilmember Sims. Now I'm ready to hear.
My concern would be that if we put the application in and we vote on it tonight, we put the application in for a certain footprint by like Lodge Hill, for example. I understand we can change the venue on a hill, but can we change the footprint to another location once it goes to the state of California? If that's the case, if we have to decide tonight as to where this park is going to be improved, I think we should delay it until the next meeting, which is December the 20th, and then vote on that at that point, so that the folks at at Veterans Park and staff can get together and talk about the issues that they're planning, and I'm sure that they were not aware of. And then we could take this to the next meeting. Again, I'm worried that we put this before, we put a package in and we told them it's gonna be there, it's gonna be Lodge Hill. We'll be stuck at Lodge Hill. That's it.
If you're referring to the public comment, I think we have a couple members of the people of Veterans Park Committee here. I don't think they were asking that we spend the money on Veterans Park.
No, I presume the package, you're gonna apply for the grant.
Yes.
You have to tell them where you want to put these funds, correct?
Yes.
So you tell them in the grant, it's gonna go to Lodge Hill, are we stuck there?
Yes, and so the reason that we selected Lodge Hill, we felt like it was somewhat of an easy decision, is there's essentially two places in Plymouth right now that would qualify for this funding. There are some other things that could work if we had a significantly larger amount of funding to throw at it. In the resolution, one of the items that it says is that the city is saying that they have enough money to complete the project. So the two places that projects can get completed that qualify for this funding are essentially Veterans Park and Lodge Hill. Veterans
I
Park
understand that.
has other funding, which leaves us with Lodge Hill as essentially the only place in Plymouth where this funding would be applicable.
But I was thinking perhaps $222,000 could build a very nice bathroom at Veterans Park. Could we use the money for something like that, for example? Could they use the 220 for an item that they're gonna struggle with finding the funds for? If this money's gonna be, if it's that easy to get, I understand it is, and we have to commit tonight or soon as to where that money is going to be spent. I would like to think that we're gonna give us a little more thought as to where we spend it and how we spend it.
Yes, so that you're correct. The one question here is where to spend it. So if you want to spend it in a different place, then yes. Veterans Park would be the only other place that we think it would qualify.
Is that all? Councilmember Kleinfelter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've done a little bit of research on, shocking, right, on the Oddfellows. Because the hall itself was provided to the city of Plymouth because of their lack of membership, so they no longer had the funds to maintain the facility. It's a historic building. But with our acceptance of that historic building comes also responsibility for it and for understanding and protecting a historic place. So that the motto of the Oddfellows is visit the sick, relieve the distress, bury and educate the orphan. So basically the Oddfellows, it's been in Europe since they think 1650, but in the gold country, which is mining towns, the Oddfellows were formed to protect the families of miners in the event of a death or serious injury. So, and it was before welfare, before Social Security, before health insurance or unemployment benefits. If anyone's gone up to the cemetery, you'll see a grave with 11 or so miners right together from a mine accident. So I think that a very, very special place would have a nice serene walking gardens, fruit trees blooming in the springtime, benches and seats for people to walk around would have made a lot more sense than loud pickleball courts in the middle of a residential area. And most of the people in this community have no idea what that is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for pointing that out. My other point is that in doing this research, graveyards are common to the Oddfellows. They have their own graveyards. And when I was on the council in the nineties, and we were looking at the restoration of the hall itself, there was a great deal of information regarding there could be graves on that site. So at a minimum, even if there wasn't during a CEQA process, we would have to prove that we disproved. We would have to do a historic data search, which is going to make the CEQA incredibly expensive on this site. So, and I don't like the word, we found money for an architect. We found, no, there's no we. The council sets a budget. And I don't remember, first of all, any of this project or any other being vetted by the council or publicly disclosed. And that's an incredibly important part of what's going on here. The staff does not decide what to tell the council should be the project. We should have 6 months ago, a year ago, had a workshop, had people in, had the public discussion, and vetted several ideas so that when we found out this was possible, we had public and council input. This is an ongoing problem, and I don't know how to rectify it. But the community needs to be more involved. The transparency on this was absolutely terrible. I don't think we should be voting on it tonight. I agree with Councilmember Sim that at a minimum, it should go to the next meeting and possibly a special meeting after that. So thank you.
Councilmember Ackerman.
I agree, and I'm quite frankly disappointed that this wasn't brought to the council before this. I would have liked to have had the opportunity for us as a council to be aware of this, to have some meaningful input way back when, and more important, that the members of the community would have been given the opportunity to have meaningful input. And just in the, 48, 72 hours since the agenda has been posted, and even tonight, I'm hearing, quite frankly, what I think are some other ideas that I think have merit. And I would have liked to have seen the community be able to share ideas, and I think we could get a lot of good ideas. And it bothers me. I like the idea of improvements being made to Lodge Hill, but this isn't about me and what I think should be done. It's about the community and the community's input. And the improvements to Lodge Hill, I guess, have been kicked around since 1986. And now we have in the agenda packet, we're told that this application is due in the middle of December, which is in 5 days from now.
31st.
And I heard that it's really December 31st. So we've got 20 days. And I'd like to be able to give kudos that the city found the money, but it's hard for me to do that knowing that I feel like my back is up against a wall to be forced to make a decision under pressure or we lose this money. I think more time is needed.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Well, I can't say I don't disagree with some of the stuff's been said tonight, but I think it's something that I think was made clear that we didn't think we were going to move forward with this grant in any way, shape, or form due to a 50% match. I think that's been overlooked. I don't think that was heard personally. I think the city is doing what they're doing to try and, like our friend over here said, hedge the money, for $40,000 investment to get $177,000 is, pretty monumental. And whether we move that money to, like Mr. Sim said, over to a bathroom or help them with a bathroom or something at Veterans Park or do this project, I think that you can't kick that down the road. And we're up against it now, so we have to make the decision now. And I think what's been missed is the fact that public's still going to have all the input. That didn't go away. That's not going to go away. This is not a transparency issue. This is an issue of we're going to have meetings and we're going to have committees talk and make formulate plans. I think there are some really good things that came out of this meeting tonight, and that will move this project forward in a way that'd be way more comprehensive. But kicking this can down the road, like we do all the time, if we're on a time limit, usually we don't have another meeting in December. Now, I'm not saying that we can't have a special meeting, but as of norms, we usually have this meeting and that's it for the month. So like I said, that doesn't take away from the ability to have a special meeting if needed. So I don't think the transparency has been taken away out of this project. I think the transparency will always be there. It's just here's a guideline, let's go for it, and we'll change it later. But the only decision that might have to be made different is if we change parks. So I think that's the discussion for tonight, is where we want to place this money if we're going to go forward with this grant, or we just walk away from the grant and not even touch it. So that's all I got.
Okay, I got a couple things or a few things. Can Mr. Osborne, can you come back on the Zoom? Because I think the question is going to be directed at both you and Michael.
I'm there. Go ahead.
Hi, Rex. Basically, this wound up on the agenda because of the time restrictions and timing, correct?
Yes, the timing. To answer your question, yes, it came up because it was time to bring it to you based upon what we had done to get it to this point. Could we have brought it 3 months ago? Could we have brought it a year ago when we were talking about the Roro ditch? We could have brought it sooner. I think you're right there. You have to, when we think about this, listening to the question from the Councilman Kleinfelter and Councilman Sim and Ackerland, that you want to get into the meat of how to do this. I think that that's great. We could schedule something every week for things that we're doing that will help you make decisions. That is a policy. You guys have to decide how you want to do that. In this particular case, we took what we knew, i.e. that we had this much money coming in. We originally wrote it off. We had it. We didn't think we could afford it. So we're never going to bring it forward to you folks again until Michael found in his conversations and the fact that we had some money that we'd bring it to you. So a lot of things ate away at the time. We could have maybe reworded it. Maybe we still can, and say that this project to the state is for our park at Lodge Hill and Veterans Park. Put them both in the resolution, and then the council decides the best way to do it. That may not be too late to do. I gotta be honest with you, I thought the Veterans Park, pretty much with the leadership they have and the money, was pretty much taken care of. We've already given them $51,000 earmarked to do things with. So I wouldn't disagree with you, Mr. Mayor, that could this have been brought sooner? I don't think we would have had any better answers. I also don't believe that setting the 5 council people down, we would have had 5 separate priorities, all good from the council, and you guys would have had to decide. It's a hard thing to do this sometimes. So beat me up for not bringing it. I'll take the heat, from you folks and the public sooner, but we try to do what we think is the best in the long run. And again, 1986, someone brought up the fact that council has directed the city to do something and it never got done because they didn't have funding. And all of a sudden, Now we have some funding. We're trying to fulfill the wishes of the city council. You folks are not the only ones that have sat there. And I wish I could have found more reasons why they didn't. I didn't get more into depth, but yeah, you have a hard decision to make tonight. We're going to support what you do. I don't think we won't. And we'll do what you ask us to do.
And then my next question is if we bring it back on the 20th, we still have the time.
I think that if you're very clear, you're going to have the same questions tonight, the 20th. Maybe we meet with Mr. Wise and the park committee from Veterans Park. And we sit down between now and the 20th and come up with what their wish list is. And they have a pretty good list. Then we talk about what's at this 30,000 foot. Could we make some priorities? But you still have to decide, are you going to do it at this park or the other? We can get the resolution rewritten. That's not a problem. We can get, but getting public input. I hate Facebook, so you know. And if you listen to it, there are so many people that were putting information on there that was 100% inaccurate, but we would be glad to sit down with everybody that would like to talk to us about it and figure it out. Council people, right down to the citizens you serve. We'll do what you ask. Could we do it by the 20th? I think so. And Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong. I believe we can submit this anytime up to the 31st, right?
Yes, we can.
That's my question.
We can submit it anytime up to the 31st, is my understanding. There's a secondary deadline of the 15th, but I believe that's just a staff member at the state that wants it. So I don't think that's an actual deadline.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, can we do other things? Absolutely. Will we? Absolutely. I wish you guys all the best to give us direction, though. Between the five of you tonight, you're going to have to tell us what you want to do. And we'll do it. And it will have to be done by the 20th or whatever day you select as a special meeting so you can get it approved and into the system in time.
Jim, if I open it up to you, I'm going to open it up to everyone. So,
I think that
I understand that.
okay. I'm going to go ahead and open up public comment one more time then.
This is probably a variation of Robert's Rules of Orders, but I appreciate this because my only desire here is to provide a point of clarification for what Rex just said. The Veterans Park Committee is not seeking to access any of these funds. We're going to be fine on our own. We'll raise our own money. This is not about us wanting any of these funds. We're grateful for
you just don't want the same
city
thing.
of Plymouth is providing $51,000 for the Veterans Park project. We're grateful. We don't want that. All we want is some coordination between what you want to do there for our citizens and what we can do for another element of our citizens. We're just asking for process and coordination. We don't want money. I want to clarify that. And further, what I want to say is we would, as a community, be crazy if we didn't go ahead and get the 177,000 leveraging the 44. If it's fungible, if we can figure out later how we best want to use it, that is the most prudent thing that we can do.
Exactly.
And that's what I do, and I appreciate giving me this opportunity, but I just want to, we don't want the money. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else here from the public that would like to speak? Anyone on Zoom? Use the raise hand feature.
Mr. Mayor, if there is not another speaker, let me add, now listening to Mr. Wise, and I trust Mr. Wise's opinion a great deal, as I do the council's. What Councilman Kleinfelter said was probably the best example of how we can treat this. When she talked about it being a meandering walkway with some memorial benches and a calm and a peaceful location, if that's what you want, that's what you can have. If you choose not to have pickleball because either you don't believe it would fit our community or whatever, then you don't have pickleball. The question tonight isn't what amenity you want. We put that stuff in there because we thought of it from a parks and recreation
Benchmark
element. However, if you choose to make it into a nice sit-down reflection area, then tell us that, because you'll have time. This grant, we have I don't know when the granting ending period is, but I can tell you that this is just so we don't let money slip away. Councilman Ackerland, your points are well taken, and you're always really good about calling and asking me questions about what we could do. I can tell you that this council can direct us tonight to go forward with the grant, make it at least geographically Lodge Hill, and then we will have 12 meetings before we ever authorize anything. You have that ability, and we'll follow it through. This was just to secure the funds, regardless of how long it took to get here, so we don't lose this money.
Is there any more public comment on Zoom? And we're gonna check emails and all that stuff. Okay, I'm gonna close public comment again. I had one, and please excuse my French on this term, but this is a term that we use in our household. I'm very much I like quality. I don't like quantity. That's kind of, I think, a big part of this discussion with Veterans Park coming and the Rotary coming towards us is we don't want quantity. We want quality. What's going to do good for our community? I've always used the term with my kids. If shit's on sale for $5, it's still shit. I mean, I hate to put it. It's that's the only way I use it. So excuse my French on that one. I don't know. My personal opinion. I think we need a little bit of time. I would like to work with the Rotary, and maybe we can, instead of some okay stuff, get some really good stuff. That's just my point of view on it. Yeah.
I think we can all agree on that.
Okay, so.
Are we going back?
And I want to emphasize this, as much as I believe strongly that I'd like to see us work with the Rotary, I also want to make sure and also emphasize how important I think it is that we listen to what we're hearing from the members of the community, even if it's on Facebook. And I realize not everybody's a fan of Facebook, and that's fine, but that is what people are using to communicate. And I
especially on this topic,
think it's really important that we listen to the suggestions of the people in the community, regardless of what mechanism they use or what media they use.
I failed, because I had rambled on for a while, failed to mention that the council was not provided an opportunity to think up and think outside of the box of its own alternatives. What types of projects would the council, because we get feedback constantly from the community, what would we vet? So this is not vetted except for by staff. There are alternative projects. I've heard for 2 years that there's a regional park required by the Zinfandel Ridge Development Agreement, which requires the city of Plymouth to purchase the land. This funding could be used to purchase land. The Jackson Rancheria has spent an enormous amount of money countywide on all of the other communities' parks and Little League fields and county parks at Molly Joyce. And we needed to be in a conversation with them. Well, would you like to bring something to the table? We also could have used these funds as an alternative to buy the property that the swimming pool is on potentially, so that our investment is protected. The citizens of Plymouth's own investment in that swimming pool facility is protected from now on. So what I'm trying to say is we, the council and the public, have not been provided the opportunity to have those feedback conversations and discuss different ideas. The staff doesn't decide what is best for us. We're not children and we don't need pablum. The staff also doesn't decide that we're not going for something, so it never brings it to the council. You come to the council and you say, we think this has a 50% match, and you let the council decide not to move forward. That's what we're elected to do, and it's our responsibility to take on that role.
I'll open public comment again. No, sorry. Public comments closed.
For your permission.
No, you're fine. I'm talking to Mike. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Councilmember Singh.
I see 2 points. I think we're all on the same page. We need to go forward with this money. But we need options. If we're going to put in a package and it restricts our options, that's not good. I think as long as we're able to spend the money where we feel it's best used, $222,000 is not a lot of money. I don't see it. I don't see very much happening at Lodge Hill with that small amount of money. I see us being able to do something pretty nice at McGee Park, or perhaps Veterans Park, that we could use that money, like I said earlier, maybe a bathroom. The bathroom in McGee Park is horrible. If somebody could remodel that, or do something there, for that matter. I just don't see that little bit of money making much of a difference at Lodge Hill. Thank you.
Councilmember Ackerman, any more? Councilmember Amers, any more? So what's the wishes of the council?
I would make a motion that we table this issue until a December 20th meeting, or between now and then, a scheduled special meeting.
I second it.
Okay, we have a first and second.
I have a motion to table this item. Roll call vote. Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
Aye.
Councilmember Ackerman.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Maruso.
No.
Mayor White.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
could, now that we have set that, first of all, very hard decisions for you folks to make, and I can appreciate that. Now, before the staff walks away from this to the next issue, I need very clear from the council. How would you like to proceed for us to gather information from the council so you can make a decision on the 20th? Would you like us to have a special meeting next week on Monday or Tuesday just for this? Would you like us to have a public meeting, advertise it next week just for this, so the public can bring back to you on the 20th what it is that you would like be able to vote on, because you will run out of days eventually after that. And I don't know if that's, I just need direction as to how you want to schedule.
I have a question before I can answer that. Why are we not having a meeting on the 23rd? And is that for sure that?
23rd.
But our next meeting would be scheduled for the 23rd, right?
Oh,
The city vacation, not vacation, holidays, 2 days for Christmas. It's the 23rd and 24th.
Okay, thank you.
We want to do what you ask. So now we're just asking for some additional just guidance from the mayor as to how you would like to move forward.
So I'm just going to throw this out here to get the discussion going. That it would seem that perhaps we want to give staff direction to solicit input from not only council members, but the community in a variety of different ways. Hopefully anybody who's listening or watching will chime in and then come back to us with some alternatives.
Would it be appropriate, Frank, for the council members not to share with each other, but to communicate with staff specifically what their personal wishes and direction would be? And then we put that into some kind of option list without mentioning who they come from?
Yeah, so yeah, you still want to follow the Brown Act procedures on that as well. And it could come back with a menu of options at the special meeting based upon community and council feedback. just to be clear, if this is helpful for the scope of what that would look like. The application is an application that the state will be reviewing, and then if they'll ask any questions, and if they're happy with the application, that application, the one of the forms on the application is a project scope cost estimate form. It's a pre-printed form that's has checkboxes. It's a pretty high level form. That's actually the form that they transmit into the grant scope as defined in the grant contract. So just my point in telling everybody this is there will be a menu of options that this council will consider at the next meeting. But it's this, for the purpose of the grant scope, it's at a high level in the grant contract. So the materials, the exact location, engineering detail, those types of things aren't going to be required. On the checklist, they don't say what kind of playground equipment, they just say, is there going to be play or sport equipment? They don't even ask what specifically that is. So just to let you know, I don't want everybody to be overwhelmed with potentially the level of detail that's going to be required to submit the application. I think it would be good to have that form at the next meeting so you can see what the options are that are eligible for the state, and maybe just check those boxes and then discuss maybe some details. But those details could probably be fleshed out after the application is submitted, because there will be specifications approved by this council. There will be a construction contract approved by this council. It still has to hit the improvements that are on that cost estimate form, but the details are not listed on that form. It's a 30-word or less general description of the project. And then of course I can't find it. And then the options are pool, aquatic center, splash pad. I'm just giving you an example. Trails or walking paths, landscaping or irrigation, group picnic or other gathering spaces. So it's at a very high level, and that would be the grant scope. So I just, I know it's a lot, but I still think it's doable by the 31st because the contract only requires a high level description.
Frank, I had one more question. So since we voted to table this and we have the list of options at the next meeting for discussion, can we have the resolution prepared, but fill in the resolution with the appropriate selection? So
the good news is the resolution only is authorizing the submittal of all documents and applications. Okay. It's actually not submitting the application itself. The idea was you submit the resolution as a city, and then as projects are identified, you submit applications into the state. Here, they're getting collapsed a little bit because the deadline to also do that is the 31st for the applications. But the point is, the resolution itself won't change between now and the next meeting. It has to stay the same because the procedural guidelines from the states in italic says the language has to remain unchanged. It's actually not the best or the clearest language in the resolution, but that's the skin we live in and we can't change it.
Thank you.
So to add what he's talking about, because I want to make sure everybody on the council knows what we as staff will be doing. We will, through Dana, since she's there, thank you, Dana, we will put up a Facebook survey, allowing people to have an input that direction. We will direct people from our website to the Facebook survey. We will also allow people to print that survey out and bring it in, and we can batch data in it. So you'll have that. So from the public standpoint, we will look at our calendars and see what day we will open up City Hall to have any public that would like to come in and meet with us to talk about options. So they can come in and sit down with us and say, I couldn't get on Facebook and I couldn't do this, but here's what I'm thinking. And we will do it that way also. If the council has another suggestion or something like to just write it to myself and CC Michael, and do not share it with the other council members to avoid a Brown Act problem. And we will look at your opportunity, your suggestion, and we will try to incorporate it in there. We want to get you as deep in these weeds as we can. So you can, for this, you'll see what the process is and we'll make it happen for you.
So we're good.
Go ahead.
So we're going to try to come back on the 20th. Is that the ideas of the council?
So that was what the motion was. So we'll bring it back on the 20th. It will come back.
So that'll be a special meeting on the 20th.
Yes. Special meeting starting at 6 p.m., not 6:30.
6 p.m. everyone. We got it.
And we will do what we originally needed to do. We will not put anything else on this agenda except for, and it's 100% Zoom, this meeting on the 20th. So we'll get that done. And you know what? You folks worked hard on this. And if I have to apologize on behalf of staff that we thought we were doing what we needed to do appropriately, I apologize.
Okay. We are now moving ahead to item 7.3, authorization to use access prior citizens option for public safety, COPS funds, in the amount not to exceed 190,000 for frontline enforcement requests for ACSO equipment purchases.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is regularly we look through kind of our finances, see where we are in certain items. This has been something that it was kind of on the back burner for a while. Either was extra money filling up in an account that we are limited in our uses for it. We tried to get some information from the state as what exactly we are allowed to do with it. We found that we were very limited in what we were allowed to use it for. So it's called COPS, the Citizens Option for Public Safety. There's kind of a longer story behind it. It's some streets money that the state decided to limit in how we could use it, essentially. They gave us our own money and told that we had to use it a certain way now. We have a contract with the sheriff's office for $100,000 a year to provide the sheriff's services. The COPS money used to be $100,000 a year. It's gotten bigger. They basically invested it. They pay out, more of the money. Then more money is coming in. What some other jurisdictions have done, is my understanding, is they make the contract with their sheriff's office, just match whatever that money is coming in. Plymouth did not do that. My guess is because they weren't thinking of what's going to happen when this money starts to be a bigger amount. Either way, now we have some money. It's $207,000 that is ours, but we can only use it for frontline law enforcement, which we do not have in the city, according to the state. What we have is the Amador County Sheriff's Office. So essentially, we could just give them that money and say it's for frontline law enforcement. What other cities have done is they go by specific requests. We wanted to bring you some options, so went to the sheriff's office, said, if you have anything you want, we can ask our council if they want to give it to you. They're looking for patrol cars. They're about 75,000 each. So we just added up some money, said, what could we get for about $207,000? And that's what this is. A couple of patrol cars, and then the sheriff's office said that their radar trailers are old. I guess the last one actually Plymouth purchased also. What the sheriff agreed, if we do decide to purchase those radar trailers for them, is they can be housed in Plymouth and we can use them however we like until the sheriff needs them, and they'll come pick them up and take them around the county. The other thing with that is it will give us a couple more things that we can actually use. They can also be used for messages, such as for fare, anything like that. We would have access to these. I think that would be something we'd be specific with the sheriff. We need to get to use them this week. Don't use them somewhere else, please. And they can also do traffic counts, as my understanding. So we can see how many people are skipping the roundabout, things like that, without having to have somebody sit there. That is actually something I just learned. I didn't know I could do that. I did a message board. I did not know the traffic counts. So those were about 35,000 each for 2 and 1 trailer to tow them around. Unlike the last time, there's not a deadline on this. Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
if you have ideas, bring them up, we can bring them back. That's what we asked the sheriff what he could use it for, because within the city, probably have a difficult time doing it. One thing, the reason that I did kind of rush this along once I found this that I didn't know, is that there's actually supposedly a time limit to these things. However, I don't think it's ever been checked. They're not following up on the money. But technically speaking, we have basically 2 years to spend it. I don't think spending it now should be an issue, but I think going forward, we would try to see what our excess funds are and try to move forward with that. I think there would also be potential to do a different contract with the sheriff. The sheriff is not interested in doing that at this point, so that's not necessarily an option right now. But those are our options. You can use it for this. You can say we don't like patrol cars, find something else. We could try to give it back to the state, which they might be surprised.
How much does a tank cost? I'm just kidding.
They already have one of
Oh,
those.
yeah.
Oh, yes, they could sell a tank and buy some patrol cars.
You say the car for 77,000, it says 50 here.
There is a version control issue with the one we've got. There's 75,000.
All right, so
There,
we're talking about one car now.
no, it's 2 cars. So if the 190,000 that you see at the end is correct.
Yeah.
It's 75,000 each for 2 cars. 2 cars, 2 cars, 2 signs, 1 trailer.
How much time do we have to spend, give the money to buy the cars and then trailers?
Until the state asks for us back.
But then we have to do something, but that's not gonna happen.
No, it's not. This is, you essentially, you can choose to say, I'm fine with spending on this. If you want to say, ask the sheriff for some other ideas. I don't think that there's anything legally that we could spend it on as a city.
If we get a contract increase down the road, can we use this money for
Yes.
an
Yes.
increase? So maybe we leave it in the bank and, no,
Probably not.
probably not.
So we are having more money coming in. So that's what it is. So I think we're up in the 150,000 a year range right now. And I mean, I can't guarantee that it's
In
gonna stay like
addition, in addition to ours.
that. We're getting an extra 50.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes, so 150 coming in, and we're spending 100 every year. So this is actually our excess money for about 5 years going back. I want to say, because it's been gradually increasing.
Because I asked about it every budget.
Yes. And I said, I think the last one, I think I said I was working on it. I don't know about 2 years ago, but I was like, I know there's something with it. I've been working on it. So that's the specific requirement is frontline law enforcement requests. If it's not being used just for contract work, and it's by the end of the fiscal year following the one when we receive it. So, yep, we did take the step of contacting ACSO because it would actually give you something to look at other than just giving them money. And that's where they're willing to actually give Plymouth the use of those radar trailers, which actually, I mean, that's the one way we can get kind of a win for the city out of it. So that's it. Any thoughts, questions?
I'm gonna go to public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Is there anyone on Zoom use the raise your hand feature? I see a thumbs up. Does that count?
Sure.
I'm wondering.
Dana, what's the name on it? Can you just ask something?
It's Gary.
Let's go.
Hey, Gary, did you want to speak on this topic?
It is.
Gary Redwood.
There it is.
Yes.
Sheriff Redmond.
Hey, Mr. Mayor and ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, I apologize for the very casual attire tonight. I was unaware that this was going to happen, but I did get word that this was going to be on the agenda, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. And I just want to say that, I've talked to Rex and I've talked to Mayor White about the fact that at some point in the future, we're going to need to talk about increasing, what the city of Plymouth is paying for law enforcement services. However, I've made it perfectly clear that at no time will the sheriff's office, while I'm in charge, ever stop the services we provide the city of Plymouth. Right now, you get the full force of the sheriff's office. And currently, you're paying for about a half a deputy and some dispatch services. But what Rex and I talked about was these funds that were available to provide equipment for the sheriff's office. And the equipment that we do need are law enforcement vehicles. And we do have a budget and we do have a replacement fund. But right now, I am trying to increase our sheriff's office staff by about 9 officers. And part of that is because of Harris Casino. And there's some funding that is included in that does pay for patrol vehicles, but it doesn't include all of it. So I can tell you this is greatly needed, greatly appreciated. If the council chooses to move forward with this project, this is something that is above and beyond my current budget that we do need. So I just want to say thank you for hearing this, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to the council tonight.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else on Zoom use the raise your hand feature?
Not at this time.
Is there any text or email?
None.
Is there anyone at City Hall that would like to speak on this matter? We'll go back to Zoom. Use the raise your hand feature if you'd like to speak.
No one.
And still no text or email?
Nope.
Okay, we're going to close public comment. Councilmember Sims, questions, comments, concerns?
I have nothing.
Councilmember Kleinfelter.
I want to thank Gary Redmond, our sheriff, for coming on the line. I think the radar trailers are very important. We had been discussing as a council even our own purchase of something like that, because and part of it is as a result of the roundabout. We've got a tremendous number of complaints of speeding on Mill Street, and it's a quiet residential area, and it's being used a lot more extensively than it was before. My largest concern with this is I would have liked to have seen the larger portion of it tied to staffing rather than say, here's 2 vehicles, because it's hard for me to wrap my head around the city of Plymouth, the citizens of the city of Plymouth's funds just going like this, and how can we show the direct benefit to the citizens of Plymouth? So if anybody has any comments about how to assure me that $250,000 worth of vehicles directly benefits every citizen in Plymouth, I'd like to hear it.
Councilmember Ackerman.
I appreciate that we're having the opportunity to have the discussion and that we have some time on this and that we don't need to move on this tonight. I certainly don't want to kick it down the curb, but I think some of the information we're getting tonight, I'm finding it to be helpful. I do have a question. I think, Michael, you mentioned that the city has already purchased a radar trailer from the sheriff's office for the county.
4.
Pardon me?
4.
4.
Not
Oh, not
I think it was many years ago.
Okay,
many
I
years.
misunderstood. Good. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councilmember Aaron. Sheriff Redmond is correct. Matter of fact, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but I've met with all 3 candidates, and we got a screaming deal on our contract. I think we all know that. And I like our screaming deal. That was kind of my main discussion with all three of them. You know, I don't know. I'm no expert in this field. I don't know how you can secure the money to go towards staffing. I don't know. I know I talked to Mayor Rhodes and Ione about the same thing, and they're a little bit different. They have an Ione City Police Department. They're going to put on another officer. So I know it's a little bit different. We're in just a different situation. So, I mean, that's just my comments.
If it helps, I think the way that we would do that would be to look at the contract agreement in the future and then look at, say, increasing a regular amount. Since this is our back funds, it could pay for a couple of years of an officer or something like that. But the issue would be keeping that position funded. So I just my recommendation to the council would be instead of, maybe one time a project, but to increase the staffing, we could go and say, hey, we can give you up to a higher dollar figure. Can we have 3/4 of the deputy to look through or something like that? Otherwise, or essentially, we could be asking to hire an officer for 1.5 years and say, well, now our money's gone. So,
Well, the current contract has minimum staffing levels in it already. And I'd like assurances as a part of this whole discussion that those minimum standards that are in the contract are being complied with. And we can, since we have time, let's have all these discussions. We want the money to go to frontline law enforcement. There is no doubt about that. But how we use it to directly benefit the residents of Plymouth is my largest concern.
Is there any more comments from the council? Okay, what's the wishes of the council?
I'd like to have this discussed in January.
Try to motion.
Well, that was a motion.
Yes.
So you have to have an opportunity for a second. Okay, if there's a second, you can also make a motion as well, but we need a second.
Okay, do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, now we can go back with the second motion.
Yeah, so if there is a second motion that can be made, it can always be made as a substitute or amended motion, and you need a first and a second on that as well. So if you wanted to make a motion independent of Councilmember Kleinfelder, now's his chance.
I can make a motion that we option not to exceed $190,000 for frontline enforcement request for the ACSO equipment purchase.
So approve the resolution as presented.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Can I second both?
Can you second both?
Just to get it to a vote, yes.
Sure, I'll second it. Let's spice it up.
Let's spice it up. Okay, so we go with it.
So I'll tell you how you.
So we go with the first motion.
No, you deal with you go in reverse order, so the second motion will be voted on first. And then you go to the first motion. The city adopted Rosenberg's rules of order, and that's how you address it.
Okay, let's go to the second motion first.
For the record, why don't you say repeat what it was?
The second motion was Doug's authorization to the use to excess prior, that was it, prior year's options for public safety cops funds in the amount not to exceed 190,000 for frontline enforcement requests for ACSO equipment purchases.
And can I ask what the first motion was? Was it what?
The first motion was to table to a January meeting.
And was that seconded?
Yes.
Was there a second?
Yeah, both of them were second, so we're gonna,
kind of.
And just to be clear, whenever you have first and second, I know this council typically goes right to a vote, but you're also allowed to discuss the motion after you have a second. So either motion can be discussed. We don't have to go right to a vote, but it sounds like that's what we'll do, so.
Okay.
So to be clear again, the vote that right now is on Councilmember Sims' vote to approve as presented staff's recommendation.
Why are we voting on that one first?
Because the city adopted the Rosenberg's rules of parliamentary procedure, and that's when you have multiple motions on the floor, you take them in reverse order. That's just a parliamentary procedure. That's why. And it's not because people prefer Councilmember Sims' motion.
Thank you.
Roll call vote. Councilmember Sims.
Aye.
Councilmember Kleinfelder.
No.
Councilmember Eckerlin.
No.
Vice Mayor Maruso.
Aye.
Mayor White.
All comes down to me. I like the equipment idea.
Since
Three.
the second motion was a substitute motion as opposed to an amended motion.
Now we have to go through that one.
No, that is the vote.
I was gonna go, how does that work?
So we have 3 yes votes, 2 no votes. Motion passes with 3 votes.
Okay. City staff communications and reports, 8-1, city manager's report.
I will run through a couple of things. If Rex is still on, he may have other things to add as well. Got a meeting, 20th, 6 p.m. And it is going to be Zoom. We're required to have one anyway for the AB 361 every 30 days.
Yeah.
Other than that, next meeting, January. At that meeting, we'll have you start looking at a couple of things. We're going to start talking about RFPs for 2 things. One, we're going to need to continue the discussion for the Prop 218 for water rates. So we're going to start talking about what we want to see and some consultants, things like that. I'm also going to ask you about our financial auditor. We need to have a new auditor. We can elect to go with one that our past auditor recommends, or we can do an RFP. We'll make a recommendation for you, we'll look at all that. So there'll be a lot of information on that. That's something we'd like to have done probably January, February, to get somebody new coming in for this fiscal year. A couple other money things. We're going to have some funding for businesses in town. That was one of the CDBG things. That's coming through. It got signed up. We should have a contract coming through for Rex to sign, and then hopefully funding to help local businesses. So we'll have more information on that. We also may need to relook at some individual funding from CDBG that is available to individuals and families. Longer story, but we may need to get creative with some funding. We have some money that we may need to find out different ways to get it to be completed. So we've had a couple of productive phone calls with this. They actually hired some consultants because they were overwhelmed. They were falling really behind on some of this and not able to manage it. So they hired a consulting company. So I had a couple of conversations with consultants about what other things kind of some of this money could expand into. So we'll be bringing that in. I anticipate that we will have some money left over to figure out what to do with and how to help some people. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
yeah, it's actually some good productive things that we'll be talking about. We, as you know, water bills changed, got a new company, changed over all our accounting software, our utility billing software. There's a lot of good things from that. However, the past month or so, we've had a few hiccups, such as with like the auto pay. For some reason, people weren't being able to pay checks. I believe it's cleared up now. But had some hiccups with it. Other than that, it seems to be an improvement. We're cutting down on some staff time for it. Hopefully, people are able to get more information that's fair. Are still working on that. We're moving forward on everything. Other thing that will be coming back soon. So I believe also in that January meeting will be water line replacement that the state and fairgrounds is giving us money for. We got bids back for that. And so we should be bringing that to council to select a contractor for the rest of the area from the tanks down. So we've seen that in January.
Okay,
Rex, do you have anything to add?
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
I do. Thank you, Michael, for being there with your information. Couple things I want to thank Council Member Sim as his role as an ambassador, and to Francine Ramos and Dana and our city staff for the winter festival that took place last week. Outstanding job. Nothing but great comments and feedback from people. And I appreciate all the hard work. In addition to that, we'll have in January the 13th, I believe is the date, we will have the mayor's election take place that day. We will also schedule on the really fun stuff. We'll look at your council's calendar for the required ethics class and sexual harassment class, things like that. Get those fun things early on in the year. So in addition to that, we will talk about the forms required, like Form 700, and a few that you'll be getting electronically, and Maria will help you with those if you need. I think Michael covered everything else. I do want to add that starting in January, at some point, you'll get a mid-year budget review. We will look at how the budget's doing. We'll share that with you. And so you'll have some idea where we're at mid-year. And you'll hear from our elected treasurer at that point, I believe, to tell us what the state of the city's finances are. I do say that everybody's doing a good job. Our city staff is probably the best you have in the region for a community this size. You can't beat them. And I want to thank them every day. I want to let you folks know that you're the elected officials and you make the hard decisions, but the daily work is done by the staff, and they do such a great job. So with that, I have nothing else. Again, thank you for all your work. This is the first time Frank has been back since he's a new father.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm still a father.
He is a father, he just has more children now.
Yeah, I don't even know how that works. I'm still a dad, but a dad of other ones as well.
So we appreciate, I guess, his hard work on that. I'm not really sure. And but everybody, thank you again for the opportunity to serve, and we look forward to next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Rex.
Thank you, Rex. Okay, 8.2 and 8.3, council member reports and future agenda items. Councilmember Simmons. That's not right. You've done so much between this meeting and the last meeting. Come on. How was it Christmas?
I would like to chime in with Rex said about the Plymouth Christmas party. It was a great day. And I want to emphasize that Francine Ramos did most of the work. She was fantastic. Most of the ideas and all the folks that came out the merchants, the carriage and the horse. And it was all her idea, and she was fantastic. Francine, thank you so much for all your help.
Okay, Councilmember Kleinfelter.
I'd like to have placed on a near soon agenda, probably not the 20th, because that's gonna be, we're gonna hit and run that meeting. But open up the discussion of placing the garbage bills on the water and sewer bills. So I'm reluctant to have the discussion and use the word mandatory. I don't like that word. But if it is collected on your water and sewer bill, then you are very likely to want the service. So it's a worthy discussion.
So adding ACEs to the water and sewer.
Yes.
Councilmember Ackerman.
I just also want to add and compliment everybody who put together the Christmas event on Main Street. It was wonderful. I don't remember if we've met since the Harvest Festival. That was also excellent. And so, great job to everybody who was involved and put that together. As far as future agenda items, I actually had on my list here, I wanted more information on CDBG and just how the whole thing works, what the money has been spent on, what the process is, how items and things get funded. So I'm glad to hear that's being addressed. And that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Quick question, Mary Ann. Are you asking just about the two things that we've done with the COVID CDBG items? CDBG encompasses a lot. Are you asking, do you want like a CDBG kind of overview? You're interested in everything they do? Okay. Just making sure. Didn't want to come and we say like, but I wanted to know about something else.
Councilmember Amoruso.
Nothing. I attended Emerald Fire Protection meeting last month, and there's one coming up here on the 15th that I'll be attending. Nothing came out of the last meeting. That's about all I got. And future agenda items. Pathway to Hoxie. Merry Christmas.
I just saw Rex put his finger up, so.
I want to make sure Peter brought up that Hawksview thing. Michael, before we go off, just as I think that we need to share even some of the minor things that we're doing to the council so they understand that the staff is working behind the scenes on things that we wouldn't normally do as protocol. We have a meeting coming up with with John Gidney and a group from the state. Tell them about that quick.
Yes, ATP projects from Caltrans, active transportation projects. It does encompass safe routes to school and a few other programs that used to be their own thing. Now it's all grouped under this active transportation. They go in funding cycles every 2 years. So we will be bringing it back to the council, but we're also actually meeting with TC and representative from the state, which is very preliminary, what kind of projects it could be winnable, essentially. There's a couple of things that we've flagged already, which are walking trails, especially walking / bike trails.
Walking.
So we flagged 3 things so far. Portion of the Aurora ditch that's in town, that should be eligible for walking path. There's 49 down from Zinfandel Ridge, like the roundabout, should also be eligible. It's a question of how competitive. And then the land purchase for Hawksview emergency access would not be eligible, but if we got the land, improvements. Apart from that, actually, if there's anything that you can think of that might qualify, let me know if you want me to get you some of the information on what's eligible, and feel free to get more creative. I think sometime in February, we'll be having the most preliminary reading to ACTC, the state, just to see what they think about that.
Thank you, Michael. And the other thing that I didn't mention, and I got my notes, but I forgot, is that at the council's direction, we met with Senator Padilla's office, the mayor and council member Sim. And I want to say that both the council representative did a good job and got their attention. And that the senator then met with the staffers for Senator Feinstein's office, who is going to be our next meeting, who actually is part of the Appropriations Committee. Senator Feinstein's office, not only have they said that they heard what we were talking about, they kicked it up to another staff level. And they have sent us some resources that we're in the process of talking to with USDARD funding and some state funding to help with our infrastructure, our sewer and water pipes. So because of those two meetings, we are way ahead of most of the people in the state. So maybe by January, we should be able to tell you about some grant opportunities that they're going to help us do that are not payback loans, that are true grants. So kind of excited about those two. So for the mayor and council member Sim, there may very well be another meeting coming up soon, but until then, we are well into the minutia of trying to get that $13 million.
I just wanted to mention for Michael that in the old days, in order to fund some of these larger projects, people in our region would put off some of their projects and share the funds, let Amador County so that might be a possibility with working with the cities, so that would be a large enough amount to get a project done.
And I believe that's why John Gedney, the ACTC, is organizing these for us. So he actually made the funding, said, here's what's available for Plymouth. So I think it's less than imminent. And I think that he's coordinating with the cities and county to make sure that we're all working together, to get the most money. And I'm really sorry for the scatterbrain nature of this, but I remember one more thing. Since we had the sphere of influence incident in LAFCO, tracking their activities a little bit more closely. There is an item I don't think that it's going to end up affecting us, but they're putting up some information. They hired a consultant to determine essentially what funding there is for fire departments in the county. It's pretty important that the dollars are talked about in the correct way. Plymouth's money is Plymouth's money. So I did actually speak to the consultant, and I hope that she understands exactly that essentially all the money that's Plymouth's collecting is Plymouth's money. It can be used for fire services as the Plymouth City Council decides. I think there was some, the MSR wasn't clear on that we saw. So that's something that I'm keeping an eye on. So that meeting's coming up. I have not seen the consultant's report yet, or they did put out the agenda. That's mostly informational, but we are keeping tabs on it directly affect us. So hopefully there will not have to be a council update on that, because if there's a council update on that, something that's not how it should be. So yes, hopefully it's the last you'll hear of that. I think that's it for me.
Okay. Well, Rex stole my thunder, and I was gonna try to pass the torch on to Doug. That's why I asked you to bring it up on that meeting. But yeah, I felt that meeting went very well. I'm really bummed out that I missed the Christmas thing this weekend. And I know I talked to Doug earlier in the week about it, and I didn't even realize the day that I was talking to you that it is show cattle season, and we were showing cows up in Yuba City, which I much rather would have been here because it was cold up there. So yeah, but heard it went off without a hitch, and it was just a beautiful thing. I don't have any further agenda items at the time, so let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting.